There we are. Now we're recording. All that stuff I said before was bonus for people who came live, but we're only a minute or two in. So what I was saying was, when you learn how to make effective calls and you're not afraid to make calls, you're not concerned about making calls, you have no call reluctance, but you're actually eager to make calls, it always turns to money. And the reason why it turns to money is because phone calls is and always has been statistically in sales, the shortest route from taking a stranger or a prospect and turning them to a client. And the reason why is because you're good at what you do. You're a consultant. You are a trusted advisor. You're excellent at your craft. So the best way to engage with you is to just sit down with you. Well, before someone sits down with you and gives you that kind of time, they usually like to toe dip their toe into the water a little bit. We call it the toe dip method. That's actually the term, the toe dip method of the sales process. And for real estate and almost any entrepreneur, the sales process usually begins with a consultation. I sit down with you, I begin going through the process. But before the consultation, there's typically a small conversation that happens, usually a 10 to 15-minute phone call where we figure out whether or not we should sit down together. And your goal is really to have as many of those phone calls as possible, toe dips, so that more people get into the pool. It's very, very effective. Therefore, all your marketing, your Facebook ads, your open houses, your mailers, all that crazy wild stuff you're out there doing is not designed to get people into the pool. It's designed to get people to just make the phone call with you so that after getting to know you and having some relationship building, then they get into the pool comfortably. And if we would just focus all of our marketing on just making the phone ring or getting people to fill out a form so we can call them, we'd be much better off. Nobody wants to make a cold call. And I'm not here to push you into making cold calls. What I am here to get you to do is to start making calls to the people you should make them to. Now, for some of you, those will be cold. Some of you are going to say, you know what, Thom, this has helped me. I want to go call FSBOs and expireds after this. Great. I think this will help you do that. But some of you are like, I will do that in a million years. I don't care how good this training is. That's fine too. But are you making 20 to 30 calls a week to people that you've contacted or come to know in the last year or two? Are you frequently checking in on past clients and consistently doing it? Are we having referral conversations? Are we regularly calling the people that attended your open houses? Are you calling a lead from any sort of source at all who somehow indicated they were interested in moving forward? Whether it's warm or whether it's cold, the fact of the matter is that the phone call is still the shortest route to conversion to cash. And so we want to be able to do it. We want to be able to do it really well. And the thing is that most of us there's just some fear and apprehension that's standing in the way. And let me say this is why I get so excited about this training. The people who are willing to admit they have some cold call reluctance or some call reluctance or some rejection fears, those end up being the best salespeople. Believe it or not. Here's why. Because people that don't have that rejection fear are the salespeople that we hate. The salespeople that we hate. They're the people that are so aggressive. And if you thought coming to this training I was going to teach you how to be aggressive, you're wrong. Actually, I plan on leveraging your nerves. The fact that you don't like rejection, the fact that you're maybe a little bit of a people pleaser, the fact that you have more of a servant's heart than a hunter's heart is going to be great. We're going to actually use that because that means you're probably the right person to be reaching out to them. So now all we got to do is make you comfortable with the activity, right? And that's what we're here to do. So without further ado, I'm noticing my green screen is giving me, oh, there. I feel like a weatherman. It's giving me a sunroof. Look at that. How do I fix that? Look at that. So cool. Anyway, squirrel. Let's get started. Share screen. Here we go. Back to the PowerPoint. All right. So remember the rules. This can be interactive. By the way, I can unmute you. I can have you join with your camera. You can come along for the ride like that if you'd like. If you have a question, all you got to do is go into the Q&A. And if it's too much to type, say, Thom, I got a question, unmute me, and I'm happy to do it. All right. If you put something in the chat, I'll check the chat every once in a while. We'll take a break or two during this. I'll check the chat then. And when I'm sipping my coffee. That's good coffee. Not much going on in the chat right now. Just to make sure you guys are alive and hearing me out there, somebody say something in the chat. Make sure you select in the chat all panelists and attendees. Go in the chat, say hi to everybody. Something in the chat. That is clever. Jennifer, you're my favorite person. She just typed in something in the chat. Very good at following directions. Matt, Alexis, Joan, welcome, welcome. Cindy, welcome. Don't worry, spelling doesn't count. It's just chat. Feel so safe picking on people from this distance. Very bold. You're all here. You're all awake. Good. You can see where the Q&A is. You can go in there and ask questions. I am so looking forward to getting back into a classroom with you guys. Man, it'll be good. All right. You guys are here. Let's dive into this stuff. There's the title. I'm not good at titles. You know, I make a lot of Facebook ads. They work pretty well, but with titles, terrible, terrible. Overcoming call and rejection fears. Ain't no one registering for that. Maybe someone can write a better title, and we'll get 1,000 people in here next time. All right. So to talk about fear and rejection and reluctance, we have to talk a little bit about this fancy thing called emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, this is the book definition from really smart people with really big heads. That's my children in the background. They have very low emotional intelligence. That's all you need for a definition. Emotional intelligence, otherwise known as EQ, stands for emotional quotient, like IQ is intelligence quotient, is your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others. That's key. The others part, very important. And it's your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior in relationships. So emotional intelligence is not just like you're some sort of psychic that can sense how people are feeling, otherwise known as an empath, but really it's more of a skill, kind of like intelligence. You know, you've got an ability. It's an actual capability where you can regulate your own emotions to some degree, or let me rephrase that. You can regulate your responses to the emotions you feel and also use that ability to understand the emotions of others and improve relationships. That's what it's all about. Sales is an emotional game. Real estate is a tremendously emotional game. I mean, think about it. You meet people, they're all running from something or running to something. But either way, they're trying to get to a better place, greener pastures. So when you first meet them, they're optimistic, they're excited, right? I can't wait to get this thing. I don't know where it's at yet, or to sell this thing I'm sick of. And then what ends up happening is they're going along, they're optimistic, and then they find the home. And now they can't live without it. And the monster comes out. All of a sudden, these fears come forward and they become crazy people. And we were like just getting along. We were like best friends and everyone was happy. And now like you're crazy. What happened? Emotional intelligence, right? That's the way it works. You know your EQ based on the pressure you're under. We all have probably pretty good emotional intelligence right now, right? Everyone does till the shooting starts, right? Till it gets crazy, till the fire kicks in. That's when things happen, when fear happens, when pressure happens, especially pressure to impress people, pressure to sell something. We're concerned about what people might think about us. That if you have any soul, right, if you have any heart, if you have any sense or concern about your impression on people, is totally natural. You're not weak if you struggle in these areas. You're probably just more sensitive. Good news, that means you're better at connecting with people. We just want to keep you from not connecting with people because of it. So here's your first question. You're going to type the answer in the chat. True or false, people can and sometimes need to eliminate their emotions from their decision making. Now I'm dyslexic. Eliminate their emotions from their decision making. Chugging the coffee, that way we can get through this thing a little earlier. Lots of truths in there. I don't see any falses. It's a trick question because I'm mean. Also because the issue here with this question is the reason most of you think it's true is probably the right reason. You go, hey, you know what? Sometimes I need to not make an emotional decision. And that's absolutely true. We actually want to make rational decisions, not emotional decisions. The trick in the question is in the word can. People can eliminate their emotions. That is false. People cannot eliminate their emotions. But we sometimes do need to regulate them with our decision making. And that is the science of emotional intelligence. The best illustration of this is my old friend Phineas Gage. Uh-oh, people are jumping into the chat, probably arguing with me now. Oh. So Phineas Gage, a great guy, back in the late 1800s, working on the railroad. He was a manager on the railroad, tough work. And one of the things they had to do when you get to a mountain range, kind of hard to go over it, kind of hard to go around it. So they just went through it by blowing giant holes in these mountain ranges and making really cool tunnels that now freak us out when we're on the train and we suddenly go into them. That's what these guys did. So the way they would do that is they would bore a hole in the side of the mountain. They would pack it full of dynamite, good old TNT. They would put the detonator in, like Roadrunner style, run a cable out to a box, hit the box, and boom, it blew up, just like in the old Looney Tune cartoons. Someone is asking, does he have one eye? One eye left. And this is why. Back in the day, you didn't just delegate the most dangerous jobs, because to be a leader, to have a reputation, you had to have, people knew who you were. Reputation was better than resume. So Phineas, being a leader, did the tough jobs. So what they would do is to put that detonator in the dynamite, to reach it in the hole, they would use a 5-foot iron rod like Mr. Gage there is holding. So he took that 5-foot iron rod, got right down on it with his eye, right, to measure it up on the detonator, and then took a rubber mallet and slowly tapped the detonator in. Very, very dangerous. Because if there's a spark, which in this case there was, there's an explosion. In this case there was. And that 5-foot iron rod went through Phineas's eye and clean out the back of his head. The whole rod, 5-foot iron rod, right through his noggin. And he lived. He lived. Made national headlines. That was good news back then for people. So that was crazy. So he went on a tour and everything. Like, everyone wanted to see this man and his 5-foot iron rod. Phineas lived. They didn't have FMLA. There was no leave. I don't know what he did. He probably went to the local doctor. They poured whiskey on his face and sent him back to work. The important thing is he went back to work, right? Think of that next time one of your employees calls in sick. Okay, well, he ain't Phineas Gage. You might want to go ahead and get back to work. So Phineas goes back to work, but he wasn't the same. And it wasn't just because he was traumatized from the accident, though I'm sure he was. He wasn't the same in what he could do. He had some brain damage. And the way the brain damage was impacting him was he was unable, literally incapable of making decisions. Like, what do you want to wear today, Phineas? I can't, right? It's like me picking out outfits. I can't. So the problem was that, interestingly, he could still feel and think and be emotional. He wasn't like drooling on himself. He was still able to understand things. So if you said to him, Phineas, you're going to wear a jacket with your shirt. He's like, okay, I get it. Like, put the jacket on you. No big deal. But which jacket should you wear, Phineas? He can't. And so scientists much later on that were doing some brain studies on cancer patients discovered that these cancer patients were exhibiting the same symptoms as Phineas. They were unable to make decisions. Long story short, these neuroscientists these brain doctors discovered Phineas Gage's story, actually went back, reconstructed his skull, and they found out that where Phineas's brain was severed is the same place that all these cancer patients had tumors on their brain. And where this tumor was actually a connection between the emotional part of the brain on the back of the brain and the rational part of the brain on the front of the brain. And what they discovered is that all stimuli, all stimulus is everything you see, touch, hear, smell, all of that stimulus comes in through your senses, whether it's your eyes, your ears, your nose, your eyes, ears, whatever, all touch, sorry. All of it comes into your spine, right? And then comes through the emotional part of the brain first, the sensory thalamus. It all comes through there first. Then it goes into the rational part of your brain. So literally, no matter how hard you try, you always have an emotional reaction before you have a rational reaction to events. So you cannot not make an emotional decision. This is going to be critical for you overcoming call reluctance, because what I'm here to tell you, this is your breakthrough moment. What I'm here to tell you is that it's not about making the emotions go away. That's the losing fight. It's actually about being aware that the emotions are there and doing the rational, right thing anyway, right? Courage is not the absence of fear. It's actions with the fear being present, right? So we understand this, but how is it done? And I'm going to help you with some mind hacks overcome this. We're going to do some mental judo today, which are actually going to leverage this fear to make you more human and thereby connect with people better than those who actually turn off the fear. So think about it. If you actually shut off your emotions, you would have to shut off your brain. And we've all met these salespeople. They walk up to you from the mall kiosk and they don't even see you. You're just a number to them. And they just spew a script and they're not feeling anything at all. And you're talking to them and they're not listening and they're not able to empathize and they can't do anything. They're just using words to try to manipulate. And you're like, man, I don't trust this person. They seem to lack character. They're not connecting with me. I don't like them. They seem aggressive. They're not behaving in the most human way. And we don't want that to happen. But what we want to do is, while we're being human, connect with people. So what you see here in the small diagram is emotional stimulus comes in, and we can take a very short route. That's a purely emotional decision. So we can actually make a purely emotional decision and cut off a rational brain, or we can make have emotions come in and still take the long route into the sensory cortex and still make a rational decision. But the emotions are still there. There's no getting rid of them, okay? So what's this short route all about? Well, the short route, if you only made an emotional decision, it's called an emotional hijacking. You've heard about this. You've heard people that something happened so tragic that they don't even have memory of it anymore. Their memory didn't even kick in. They just reacted. Like you're stepping off of a curb and you look up and a bus is coming and you just jump right back up on the curb. You didn't even think about it. You didn't sit there and do that equation back in algebra. Like, all right, a bus is traveling 60 miles an hour, north-northwest. The wind is blowing south-southwest. You'd be a pancake. You don't do that. What do? Your brain puts you back up on the curb. It doesn't even allow for rational response. And it's like, then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what just happened? The other thing that happens during that, as you can see here, is the amygdala gets involved. That's hormones. So you release things like adrenaline and cortisol, and all that stuff happens in this emotional hijacking. You're not rational at all. You've probably had this happen to you before. There was recently a car that caught fire in my neighborhood, right across the street here, a car that caught fire. And I went outside and fortunately was in a good emotional place. I was able to rationally think through it. Now, adrenaline was kicking in, cortisol was kicking in, but my rational brain was also kicking in. I was able to make sure no one was inside and, give instructions to people to call the police and that type of stuff. And it all worked out fine. But there were other people there at the scene that were just like, bah, 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 bah. They couldn't do anything. They were so overwhelmed with emotions. There was no rational reasoning with them. They had been emotionally hijacked. Perhaps you've been in an accident or had something happen where this has occurred for you. It's actually perfectly human. This is why I spent many years in the military. One of the things we do in the military is we drill and drill and drill and drill and drill for when bad things happen. Why? Because when bad things happen, we need the brain to react without thinking, right? So when they sound a certain sound over the alarm system, you know, go load your guns or go grab your fire hose or go start bailing water, because you've been trained like dogs to respond to bells, to do those things. So even though you're scared senseless, your feet's moving, right? That is a way, well, actually, we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute, is that's one of the best ways to overcome the emotional hijacking when these things happen. So without further ado, let me kind of move past this a little faster. I just want you to have a basis of some emotional intelligence so you know what's going on. So what we're looking to do here today is not remove the stimulus. Stimulus is going to happen. Not remove the emotion. Emotion is going to happen. But change our filter and our interpretation of the data so that our behavior continues. And there's some practical ways you can do this. And slowly over time, as you do this, the emotional response to the stimulus becomes informed. The brain learns, right? So people say confront your fears. Got to be careful with that. You can actually cause trauma if you confront your fears in a bad way. But if you do it in an emotionally intelligent way, your brain starts to realize, you know what, this isn't as scary as I thought, right? Like the third or fourth time you jump out of the airplane, it's just exhilarating. But the first time, it's the scariest thing you ever did. Everybody pees a little, right? But the second time, it's just not quite as scary. You're scared of different stuff because you've learned what you actually need to be scared of now. And then the third time and the fourth time, it gets better and better. I'm not jumping out of any planes. I make rational decisions. So here are your components of emotional intelligence. There are 5 components. I didn't come up with this. Really smart people who study emotional intelligence did, men like Brian Goleman, others. I just said his name wrong, not Brian. Dan. Who cares? Here are the 5 components: self-awareness, empathy, self-regulation, social skills, and motivation. All we are really focusing on today is the self-awareness and self-regulation piece. We're going to touch on motivation and empathy. All of this has to do with social skills, so it's all involved. But I want to kind of get out of the science of this and the theories of this, now that you kind of know what's going on in your brain, and begin applying it practically. All right. And that's going to start with becoming a little bit more self-aware. With that in mind, let me pause a second because I am rambling on here. We're doing good on time. Let me ask you guys, go into the chat. All right. I am curious, what do you feel when you go to make calls or when you're experiencing potential rejection or have experienced rejection? You know, we have a little, let's be a little kumbaya moment. I'd like to hear from you guys because not everybody feels the same way. Some people feel like you're interrupting people, irritating people, and that bothers you. Some people get angry. Some people are more fight. Some people are more flight. Everyone's different. But what's going on with the emotional brain around rejection or call time? Go ahead and put that in the comments. And if you say things like some of you are saying you experience anxiety, give me a scale. On a scale of 1 to 10, where's your anxiety at when you do this? 10 being the worst, like paralyzing fear. 1 being you shouldn't probably be on this training. Cindy's very honest there. Depends on if I'm calling people I know, new people, referrals, or a FISBO. Absolutely, right? It all depends on that comfort zone. And that's one of the things I want to focus in on today. I think we can eliminate that. I think we can eliminate that. Because if you think about it, we're all calling people, right? So everything that's going on there is all going on in our head. And so I want to change our approach so that we're just as excited to call a FISBO as we are someone we know. Now, I can only do that so well. I mean, to this day, as much as I have put this into practice, and why I like this training is because this training so much impacted me. I mean, I was a sales trainer for years, still suffering from call reluctance. And to this day, I still feel anxiety when I start making calls. And so I really, unfortunately, most sales trainers out there are people you don't really want to pal around. They're highly aggressive individuals. They're bloodthirsty. They tell you things like, put a picture of a Ferrari on your desk and look at it. That'll inspire you to call. Like, that'll inspire me to rob people too. That's not really what I'm looking for here. I just want to feel comfortable. I don't want to bother people. How do I do that? That's really what most of us want. And some of us just don't feel like picking up the phone. Alexa said, I just don't feel like doing it. And you know what? To this day, I don't feel like calling people. I enjoy personal calls with my prospects and clients more than I do emails, but I don't really want to call them. I have invested heavily in learning digital prospecting, as I call it. I think I've coined the phrase digital prospecting. Matter of fact, I have a private client group, and that's primarily what we do all the time is learn how can I run ads to get people to call me or set appointments with me, because I don't really want to interrupt people. And I've learned how to do that. That said, I'm still confident about making calls, and I still practice making calls on a regular basis outbound. And no matter how good I am at running ads, I still convert more people from those calls. But even with that knowledge, I still don't want to call people a ton. Here's what I'm saying to you. You only need to be able to call people as much as you need to be able to call people. One of the most important things in your sales process is tracking, knowing how many calls you make to get what you're trying to get so you can have some confidence. We're going to talk about that here in self-regulation. So feel like we should probably take a break. Let's push through self-awareness and then take a break. Self-regulation is what I really want to get to. That's where most of the gold nuggets are you guys are looking for. But we got to kind of build to that. So let's get through self-awareness here real quick. Then we'll take a break, have some Q&A, and finish up with self-regulation, a little bit of motivation, and be done. So self-awareness is all about this. You get like it's self-defined. Self-aware people understand their emotional strengths and weaknesses, right? You can identify your own triggers, gauge your own feelings. We just did a self-awareness exercise. I said, how do you feel and why and when and what do you do about it? Like that type of stuff is self-awareness, right? We have to be self-aware. But I want to kind of tune your self-awareness to 3 fears, all right? And I also want you to think about this when it comes to the people you're helping. You're not the only emotional creature in this transaction, right? The people you're helping are also emotional creatures. And they're experiencing this as well. So the first fear is fear you won't get something you want, right? I want this house. I'm scared they're not going to accept my offer. Something's going to fall through. I'm not going to get financing. Boom, fear. Then you start feeling fear. You're not going to get the commission. Someone's asking if we will get these slides. I'm happy to send out the slides if you'd like. I will send the slides to you. Oops. Fear, I'm going to screw up my presentation. Oh, no, fear you will lose something you have is the next one, right? I think we've all experienced that recently, right? Fear we're going to lose our businesses. Fears we might lose our house. Fears we're going to lose our job. Fears you're going to get sick and lose a loved one. Significant fears running through the world here lately. Hopefully I got the presentation back up for y'all to see. And then fear, come on, there it is. Fear, someone will think less of me than I think they should. And if we're honest, this is the fear that affects our calls more than anything else. Because the other 2 fears can actually be positive drivers, right? There's a very famous book out there, which I do not recommend to anyone at all, but it's called the Starving Salesperson. What the heck is it called? Basically, the premise of the book is this: if you're desperate enough, you'll do anything to make a sale. And so we should make salespeople desperate. That's the best form of sales management. That's awesome. That's like saying, a whip drives people really well too. That's just harsh, cruel human management. So no, that's okay. I'd rather be properly led and be inspired rather than fearful. That said, fear is a motivator. If you think you're not going to get something you want, fear will drive you to do some pretty interesting creative things. If you think you're going to lose everything in your life, all of a sudden you become fearful. Actually, a positive way to use this is called the small plates method. It's actually called the Parkinson's principle, not Parkinson's like the disease, but it's called the Parkinson's principle. And the Parkinson's principle says that the smaller the plate, the more creative we become to fill it. So if you want to lose weight and you have a large plate, you're never going to lose weight because you're always going to fill that plate to its capacity. We'll always do things to their capacity. So all you have to do is lower the capacity. So if you have to eat on a small plate, you'll get very creative. At first you won't like it, but you'll eventually get very creative and you'll find ways to make the small plate very bearable. There were testimonies of prisoners of war in Vietnam who said they would have just as much joy in a hole in the ground when the sun passed over them and they would enjoy the sky. They would experience just as much joy as certain times when they were free. I'm not saying that it was just the same living in a hole in the ground as it was being back home. Obviously it wasn't, but they did experience joy. Their capacities began to change. My point is that fear you'll lose something you'll have will drive you for a period of time, but eventually we become accustomed to it. It is an entrepreneurial pitfall. As entrepreneurs, which you all are, as entrepreneurs, you will oftentimes procrastinate to the very last minute, and you'll never change that because you found that it worked. You have adjusted. You'll also find that you've been able to pretty much survive without making 30 calls a week or 50 calls a week or 30 calls a day. So why am I going to start doing it now? But if you absolutely had to and really believe that, you would. So there's a principle there where fear will drive you to take action. That said, I would rather you wanted to do it. And here's the big motivator. If you knew doing it would guaranteed, predictably get you something you wanted, I think you would, right? That's a proven principle called predictable success. One of the things I train my clients on is how to develop predictable success. I don't mind picking up the phone like I once did because I've been tracking my phone calls for 8 years. And I know to this day the formula that if I make 30 dials, I typically have somewhere between 12 and 15 conversations. And of those 12 to 15 conversations, I typically set at least one appointment. So for me, 30 dials, which I can easily do within an hour, is going to net me an appointment. And one appointment, I close at least 50% of my appointments in person. That usually nets me over the lifetime of that customer, depending on if they're an entrepreneurial customer or a corporate client, could net me as little as $4,500 in a year to as much as $45,000 in a year. I know this. I look at the formula. So when I get 5 or 6 bad calls, I don't worry about it because I just need to get the recipe done. The recipe's proven. It really helps carry me through. I'm going to touch on that again at the end. My point is that fear can be a positive motivator, but let's not use it that way. But let's be aware of them. So one fear, you're not going to get something you want. Next fear, you're going to lose something you have. Next fear, people will think less of us. And that's our fear. We're interrupting. They're not going to like us. They're going to think we're one of those people. We don't want to call them. That's the fear that's taking place. Fear leads to character defects. To overcome these fears, we say things to people we would not normally say to another human being. We try to manipulate the first 2 or 3 minutes of the conversation. We try to come up with some sneaky, slick line that'll work. How do I know this? Well, because I get those crappy calls all day long. People say the dumbest things to me. Why? Because they're afraid. And being afraid, you don't think clearly. They're emotionally hijacked when they wrote these scripts. They just didn't want to feel like that anymore. Dealing with these 3 fears will result in an increased ability to act. So if we can simply deal with these fears, we're better off. Very simply, you start by being aware of them. You have to be aware of them. I am fearful. That's where it starts. That's self-awareness. Second step, stop trying to get rid of the fear and the emotions involved. Instead, we're going to act rationally, knowing the fear is there. The number one reason most realtors will not pick up the phone and call someone is because of how they feel. And I'm here to tell you that unless you become an aggressive, soulless cold caller, the fear is and the emotion is going to stay there. What we need to learn to do is to not have you be paralyzed from picking up the phone. Once you've picked up the phone a few times, your brain will inform itself that this was an irrational fear and it doesn't need to continue feeling it. That said, time passes, you'll feel it again, all right? Because that's how fear works, all right? So what we're going to get into now is how do we go from feeling the emotion that prohibits us from picking up the phone? And here I am telling you, we're not going to get rid of that emotion. And then how do we move to comfortably and even excitedly pick up the phone? And that is self-regulation. Self-regulated people are able to control their own impulses and actions regardless of the emotions involved. Regardless of, meaning if the emotion is there, we do it anyway. And if it's not, we do it anyway. That is self-regulation, and that is primarily what we're going to focus on for the rest of our time together. I have been talking for 45 minutes. That is too much for anyone to listen to, including myself. So we are going to take a solid 5-minute break. We're going to come back at 2:18. 2:18. I will sit here for any Q&A in the meantime. So go ahead and get yourself some coffee. I will answer questions, and we will start up again at 2:18. All right, we had a question, and I'll be checking the Facebook. We're live on Facebook somewhere. I will be checking on Facebook as well to see if I have any questions there. So if you're on the Facebooks, you can ask away there. Oh, might have got blocked on Facebook. How was that? That's a first. There ain't any copywritten content in here. Anyway, maybe we're not on Facebook. All right, the question came through. Where do we check the do not call registry for FSBOs? Yeah, that's a good question. And I knew that answer like 3 years ago. There is a way to find out if people are on the do not call list. I believe, so I use it, depending on the system you're calling from, sometimes they're pre-checked before they get to you. And that's something you want to check on. Like if you're buying lead lists or you're using dialers and stuff like that, sometimes that stuff is kind of built in. Some people in the webinar chat here are saying Moho does. Cindy said your broker may have one. I think there is a public place you can go and type in a number. Cindy just posted it. Yeah, do not call.gov. Do not call.gov. That said, I believe if you still call someone, depending on how you received the list, because even if you're on the do not call list, you can still opt in to receive calls. So the reason why I haven't had to check on this in the last few years is I have everybody opt in somehow or another. You guys registered for this webinar, and there's privacy notices and all that stuff that allows me to contact you, depending on how you did it. So that said, I have European clients, and man, they got some opt-outs. They got some serious opt-outs. You have to like go in and delete their information within a certain amount of time. So we got to be more careful about that stuff. It only takes one lawsuit, right? Major fines, especially when it comes to email. Got to be careful. But do not call.gov. That said, I believe if you call someone, depending on where you get the list from, and they say take me off your list, I think, as far as I know, you're okay. But I want to be careful not to comment there. So like Cindy said, if they're on the do not call list, but there's a Facebook ad that captures their number, can I call them? Absolutely. Well, now a Facebook ad that captures their number, Cindy would had a form in there, right? So I mean, I'll show you. Let's do it. We're on break, right? Let me show you this. It's cool stuff. All right, I've stopped sharing my screen so I can pull up my browser here without you guys seeing all my passwords and stuff. This will give me a chance to check and see if we're even on Facebook while I'm doing that. It said it blocked me. It's a first. It says I'm live. Happening now. Looking at me. Talking. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Facebook Ads Manager. This is just some bonus for you guys. By the way, if you're seriously like passive and never are ever going to make a call in your life, yeah, learn how to run digital ads. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to promote my private client group, which teaches you how to do that. I'm going to just take this opportunity to self-promote vainly in this free session. So this is my Facebook Ads Manager. Okay, this is where I run my ads from. Just boosting a post is not the same as running an ad, just so you know. Running an ad is a little bit more complicated. So I only got 4 active campaigns right now, but a ton going on inside of there. So this one right here, lead conversion, private client group, running that. Maybe some of you have seen this one. This is a cool little ad here for my private client group where I teach people how to do stuff like you're looking at right here. That was another shameless plug. All right, so I've got a bunch of different ads running for this. So what Cindy was talking about here, it's super cool. So I'm running these ads, how to get more clients. You know, Kristen here says, I just got 11 more leads yesterday. I'm getting more leads than I can handle, said Patty, the realtor. So you guys fall for my Venus flytrap and click on that. And then what happens? It pops a form. Here's my fancy form. Let's see if it'll let me look at the form. There we go. I don't know how well you can see this, guys. There's the form. Try it out for free. Complete the form below to receive details about the private client group and a coupon to try it out for free. And then they would type in their email, their full name, and their company name. Now, what's so cool is Facebook already knows that information. It'll just populate that for them, and they're more likely to click next. Back in the day, you used to have to like send someone to your website to do that. Still works, by the way, but you have less likely to get a conversion whenever you leave a site to go to another site. And if you can auto-populate, it's even better. So Facebook is awesome for just running it right there. And then see, there's my privacy policy, which says stuff like, I can call you. I can call you. You've given me your information and I can call you. Now, to Cindy's point before, I don't have a phone number in here, right? Because I'm just going to email them. But all I'd have to do is add phone number to this. And if they put their phone number there, they can be on every do not call list they want to be. And they can send as many lawsuits as they want. It's right here in my privacy policy that if they put their phone number in there, I'm able to call them. Now, am I able to sell that information to third parties? According to my privacy policy, I am not. All right. So you want to be careful of that. Now, where you can, there's ways around that though, because you've asked for a call. You haven't asked specifically for a call from me. So if I was in real estate and I got a lead through this and I let another realtor call them, that would be perfectly fine. I mean, I just said, hey, you can call this person. They've asked for the call. But anyway, without getting too much into that, I don't care if they're on a government do not call list or not. At that point, they've said it's cool. And hey, if I'm ever wrong about that, I'll let you guys know. But seems to be okay. All right, we are back from break. I liked it more when you guys could talk. Let's get into the fun stuff. This is the important stuff. Self-regulating. Any questions, make sure to drop in the Q&A as you guys have been. You can also jump in the chat. There's only one rule for the chat, and that is no whining. Whining is forbidden. All right, let's get into this good stuff. So regulated people, what do? They still feel, they're still feeling the emotion, but they take irrational actions. How are we going to regulate? Well, let's consider the reality here, guys. Let's get real, all right? You are interrupting people, right? Unless they asked you to call them at a specific time or you made an appointment, you are interrupting people. That's why I'm such a fan of making appointments when you're in front of people. Let me give you a little example, and this might just change your life. You're at the open house. You're having a nice conversation with a couple. They're saying things like, we're shopping for houses and it would be nice to have a different house and all that stuff. And you're talking to them and you're getting along great. And you hand them your business card and you say, call me if you need anything. And they say, great. And you get their information and that's where you leave it off. And you have call reluctance. This is a bad scenario. This is a recipe for just absolute disaster. It's a recipe for stalking, because now you have to follow them around and call them and interrupt them. And you don't want to do that because you don't want people to do that to you. Guys, that's the reality of it. Did you think I was going to tell you that you should do it anyway and be aggressive? I'm not going to do that. I don't want you calling me when I give you my number at the open house. That's why I don't like to give my number out. That's why you don't like to give your number out. So what are we going to do about it? What you're going to do is, when you're having that nice conversation with someone, is you're going to have backbone right there. When you're comfortable, when you have relationship, when you can see the look on their face, you're going to say, I think I could be a resource for you. Can I make a suggestion? I'll say, sure. I suggest that we continue this conversation. Let's have a 15-minute call tonight or tomorrow. I'd like to walk through some things. I think I could actually help you guys. When would be the best time to call? You make an appointment. Now they're going to get some skin in the game. They're going to set an appointment. Here's the magical thing. Between now and that 15-minute call, they're going to have conversations, right? You're not asking them to commit to anything other than the call. So now they can have some conversations like, well, when we talk to this agent, are we going to want to move forward? Are we not going to want to make forward? What about that other agent we know that we promised our business to, but we haven't done anything with? And all that type of stuff starts happening. So then when you finally get on the call, they're either more ready to move forward or less ready to move forward. And you have a conversation with them, get to understand their needs and wants a little bit more. And you suggest that you begin working with them, find out if they're already working with another agent at that point. And then you suggest that you sit down for a full hour consultation. No phone calls needed other than the ones they planned. That is called the DDT, the day, date, and time. Anytime you're having a conversation with anyone on the planet that you would like to continue with, right then and there, you set the DDT. You ask for 15 minutes. If you've had a 15-minute conversation with them already, you've been standing at the open house for some time, there's no reason to ask for the 15 minutes. Go ahead and ask for the hour. Hey, why don't we go ahead and have a consultation? Either way, we set an appointment, right? And we give them some space between now and that appointment. Very, very effective. You see, if I do that, I never have to interrupt anyone ever again. So the reality of the situation is, if you do that, then the only people you're ever interrupting are people who have somehow come into your system, your call list from other means, right? I probably just eliminated 50% of your calls. You go to networking and you're talking to someone and you have a nice conversation. You book a call right there. Don't book a lunch until you've had the call, until you're sure it's worth sitting down. You're at an open house and you meet someone, you book the call right there. You don't need to call them back for a week. It's gotten cold by then and you're interrupting. Whenever you're in front of someone, you book it right there. So then the rest of the people we're following up with are other people, past clients, past prospects, people we've already had the call with, they weren't ready to move forward and we're touching base again. Those types of people, or leads that have come in through other sources. Those are the calls we're primarily making. Once they're in front of you, we don't want to chase them. All right, hopefully that's clear. So let's get to the other people then. We're not talking about the person you met at the open house yesterday. Now we're talking about a person you met at an open house 6 months ago that you haven't talked to in a while. Right? You are interrupting them. That's the reality. You are wanting something. Stop calling them and saying, I didn't want anything, just thought I'd see how you were doing. That's a bold-faced lie. All right? If you really want to make these calls comfortable, stop lying. Some of the reasons you guys are uncomfortable is because we lie. We first lie to ourselves and then we lie to them. Yeah, just calling, didn't have anything, just checking in, wanted to see how you were. Oh, and by the way, if you're looking to buy or sell real estate, that's why you were calling. So why we lie about it, right? Be upfront. The reality is we also can't read their minds. Whatever you think they're thinking is probably not what they're thinking. Maybe it is. 95% of your fears are never going to come true. 4% of them are going to come true, but not in the way you thought they were going to come true. And 1% will come true exactly as you wanted to. 100% of these statistics have been verified online. You may be rejected. That's the reality. You may be rejected. It's real. It happens. Therefore, the anxiety you feel, sane. It's human. You're not crazy. You're not weak. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't like being called and interrupted from someone who wants something, who has no idea what you're doing, and you have the power to reject them, and now the roles have been reversed. And we don't like how that makes us feel, so it's anxious, all right? The reason why I want you to believe this is sane is because there's so much training out there of people trying to tell you that you don't need to be afraid, just call them, just get over it, and that doesn't work. And the history of telling people to just calm down, no one has ever calmed down from that word. Just calm down. Oh, calm down. Oh, okay, I'll calm down. It's never happened, right? We need to stop fighting the emotion. If you sit there fighting the emotion, you're never going to pick up the phone. Stop fighting the emotion. Instead, I want you to validate the emotion. I'm a little anxious to make these calls. I don't like interrupting people. Validate the emotion. That's why I feel that way. There's nothing wrong with me. Before I get up on stage and speak to 100 people, 1,000 people, do I feel nerves? Yeah. Why? Because I'm actually not an arrogant narcissist, right? I feel nerves about getting up on stage, but I also feel excited, and I'm going to show you why. I can turn those nerves into excitement, and you can turn your anxiety about making calls into excitement too, using the same mechanisms. So this is all nice, Thom. We spent an hour getting us here. What do we do about it? This is what you do about it. First things first, we address the 3 fears. We address them head on. All right. What does that look like? You tell yourself, am I afraid of not getting something I want? Yes. Am I afraid of losing something I have? Yes. Am I afraid someone's going to think less of me? Yes. How do we address those things? We address those things by letting us know that these people do not control our destiny. If you need to, go look in the mirror, and you need to say to yourself, these people are not going to take away my home. I don't need them to approve me for me to have the things I want. This is just part of the process. The fears I feel that they're going to think less of me, if they think less of me, I am not less. You need to give yourself a little pep talk and remind yourself that these people do not have power. All right. But that's not going to make the emotion go away. It's going to make the fear. I want the fears to become right-sized. They won't become eliminated. I want them to become right-sized. And sometimes this is what I'll say to myself. If I call this person and they call me a jerk on the phone and hang up, what happens next? Do I get physical injury? No. Does money drain from my bank account? No. What will happen? Well, I won't have to hear them anymore. Literally, I'll be right back to the same place I was. Nothing will happen. I eliminate the fear. But the fact of the matter is I still feel the anxiety about calling them. I can't eliminate that. I permit it. But now it's just typical nerves, not irrational fear, just typical nerves. All right. Third, excuse me 1 second. Let me just tell my children I'm still on the phone. Dad voice, powerful, powerful. Third, you drill the plan. Drill the plan. Remember I gave you the military analogy before, right? The military analogy says, if I know I'm going to be facing something where my brain is going to become jelly, then I don't need to be in a position where I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. So as much as you guys probably don't like this, if you're struggling with this emotion, and I still do it to this day, write a script. Practice that script like crazy. You go, well, Thom, when I read a script, I sound like a robot. I don't want you to read a script you're unfamiliar with. I want you to have a script that you're very familiar with standing by, right? I play music, not like in a really good way, but I'll help lead worship at my church, okay? And I can play these songs with my eyes closed, but I have the music in front of me when I'm in front of all these people, because when I get nervous, which happens, it helps me to look down and simply see the notes again. And it just helps me get right back to what I'm already familiar with. Now, if I was doing that for the first time, I could still play through it with the music, but it wouldn't be as good. My point is that having a script you've practiced 100 different ways that you can just go through and drilled over and over again will actually help you. not to eliminate the emotion. Stop letting that be the measurement as to whether or not we're getting better. Not to eliminate the emotion, but when you're on the call, to not have those horrible scenarios that we've been fearing, that you're going to get on the phone and sound like an absolute idiot and say something really stupid you didn't mean to say. That's not going to happen. Why? Because we're going to actually drill it to the point where you're going to just say what was on the script. Now, you might not think you sounded as good, but you didn't say something stupid because you're just going to default to the script. It'll be like, you don't even know what just happened. It was just a totally emotional thing. Your mouth just mouthed the words and you got through it. That's a very important thing. And fourthly, and for me, this was the transformational piece. I want you to remember your core values. What do I mean by that? You need to remember why you make calls. All right. You need to remember why you make calls. Let me see if, yeah. So please hear me on this. If I've lost you, come back now. If you're checking your email, just take a quick break on your email. I want you to come back to me for just a second. This was the game changer for me. Why am I calling these people? Why am I calling these people? I am calling these people not because I need to make a sale. That's simply a result. I'm not calling these people because it's my job, right? Just so happens you guys are in real estate. Just so happens I'm a trainer. Yeah, that's my job, but that's not why I'm calling them, right? I don't have to call anybody. I'm an entrepreneur just like you. I can go to the beach today if I want to, okay? I'm not calling them because I need to pay my bills, right? I made a choice to come into this industry because I enjoy this industry. I made a choice to have a career where I help people. That's why I'm calling them. It just so happens I can make a good living doing it. And I love that about my job. But that's a result of doing my job well. Hear me. The reason you are calling these people is because you are uniquely skilled and able to help them. And apart from your help, they're either going to go find that help from someone else who, I don't know, maybe less capable than you or more capable than you. But you are not being a leader in that situation. You may not believe in divine inspiration. You may not be a person who believes everything happens for a reason. I do. But even if you don't believe everything happens for a reason, the fact remains that even if it's by coincidence, you are the one who has this person's phone number in front of you. It is therefore your responsibility to offer your help to them and not leave them to go find help from another source. As a matter of fact, if they went and found help from another source and didn't have a good experience and found out later on that you had passed because you didn't feel comfortable, they might be upset with you. All right. So here's what I want you to understand. Your core values are, I am skilled at helping people. I am able to help people. And if you're like, I'm brand new in real estate, Thom, I'm not an expert. Did you go to real estate school? You know more than other people. Are you the one whose job is to help them? Well, then you're the best they got. And you're more of an expert than they are. You are able to get them into homes they cannot get into. You have access, you have MLS, you have resources, and you are paid to use those things to help them. I'm afraid you're actually good help. Here's my point, guys. The reason we're calling these people is because we are leaders who have the duty to help. Now, part of that help sometimes involves helping people who in the moment may not be desperately wanting that help. It's easy to be a nurse to a patient who's sweet and appreciative and letting you help them. It's hard to help the cranky old patient who doesn't really want it. But it takes a bigger leader to be kind to those who aren't kind to them. Now, the fact of the matter is most people are going to be kind to you. Here's what I say to myself every single time to this day before I make calls. Thom, you got into this business, you love this business, and you've helped a lot of people. You are skilled and trained and able to help people. Your clients tell you all the time that you have helped them. They are grateful that you helped them. Had you not helped them, they would not have experienced that blessing in their life, and you would not have experienced the blessing of being able to help them. Therefore, you have a duty to call them and ability to call them. Now, I remind myself that the next few minutes of first connecting with them can sometimes be a little rocky, but it's worth hanging in there for their sake. So I need to hang in there for them. It's not about me. And I usually say that to myself about 5 or 6 times. I'm hanging in there for them. It's not about me. I'm hanging in there for them. It's not about me. And the emotions I'm feeling are normal and they're not the problem. Usually once I get myself to that point, I'm able to make the first call. And when I make the first call, the emotions at that point are at their highest. And all I do is follow my script. And the second time it's better. And the third time it's better. And by the fourth or fifth time, I've actually usually helped someone. And then the script goes to the side. And I've experienced this countless amounts of times. Your anxiety, your action is guaranteed if you follow this plan. You will pick up the phone and call if you do those 4 steps. You will make the first call and the anxiety will fade quickly. All right, hopefully that was helpful. I'm telling you guys, that is what I do every single time to get my first 5 dials in. My first 5 dials. All right, real quick now. I want to touch on rejection versus objection. So great, Thom. Now I'm making the calls. I've written my script, and I'm going to talk about scripts here in a minute. I've written my script. I walked through that process. Don't blow by that. Don't think listening to this webinar is doing the process. You have to physically do that process every single time. All right. Rejection and objection are 2 different things. Rejection is what happened at the prom, right? Rejection is what happened when you went up to Sally to ask her to dance, and she said, "Get out of my face, weirdo." Right? That's rejection. That has scarred you, right? You've been rejected a few times in your life, probably only, and that has scarred you. So we think objection is rejection. It is not. Objection is when someone gives you a reason not to do something. I'm really not interested, or you caught me at a bad time, or, we're not ready. Maybe call me back in 6 months. That's an objection. They're objecting to the offer, giving you a reason for saying no to the offer. That is not rejecting you. When you call someone and they say, "I hate you people, stop calling me," and they slam the phone down, that's a rejection, and it's silly. They're not rejecting you anyway. What are they rejecting? They're rejecting the call and the interruption. If they got to know you a little bit, would they have done that? Probably not. Let's don't even take that personal. Those are actually funny. Objections tend to be what causes the most anxiety because we think they're rejections and they're not. We think that we now have to enter into an argument phase where we try to convince them to do something else. But you need to start thinking of objections as getting you closer to where you want to be. So every time someone says something like, "I'm not interested," or "You caught me at a bad time," or, "No, thank you, I think we're going to go with a different option," I want you to see that you're actually closer to working with them now because you now have out in front of you the reason they weren't going to work with you. A key to sales is bringing everything out that would keep them from being helped by you. And either those objections are valid and they should not be working with you, or they are not valid and we need to show them why they're not valid without pissing them off. Rejection is very rare and unlikely because you are a human being that is going to sound very human on the phone. People reject monsters. They don't reject humans. Objection is helpful and not personal. So an example of this, I get calls all day long, right? Sometimes when I pick up the phone, it's somebody who I don't even think lives in the United States who says something to me like, "May I please speak to the business owner?" Well, for what company? Stronghold training. Why you want to talk to him? Is this the business owner? Like, this isn't even real, not even human. I'm like, "No, you got the wrong number. We went out of business 5 years ago. He's dead." I don't know, say something like that. Get off the list, right? The fact of the matter is that if they would have called me and said, "Hey, my name is Thom. I know I'm pulling you away from something. I just needed to talk with you for just a couple of minutes. Would you by chance happen to be the business owner?" You hear how much human inflection is in that, how honest that was. I called it out right there. I know I'm interrupting you. I know I'm pulling you away from something. I just needed a moment of your time and I sound human. The words aren't magical, but how I'm saying it makes it very human. You're much less likely to be rejected because you're real. And they'll say, "You know what, you did catch me at a bad time. What is it?" Something like that. You usually get an objection, not a rejection. So what do we do when we receive the objection? The first thing I want you to do is train your brain by smiling. You're on the right path. So when you say something to someone like, Hey, I just wanted to talk to you for a few minutes. You had attended an open house of mine a few weeks back. We didn't get a chance to talk after. And I wanted to find out how you guys were doing on your search. Lots of emotion and empathy in there. And they go, yeah, I really, we never really find anything, but, we're already working with somebody and, the prices were too high, or I don't know, whatever they say, I want you to smile. You're on the right path. And then you're going to pause. Don't jump right in with a response. I want you to respond with empathy. All empathy is calling out with some understanding what they're going through. Hey, I appreciate you sharing that with me. Your honesty is really appreciated. Something with empathy. If you empathize with someone, you connect with them on an emotional level, and they will begin treating you more intimately, which is nicer, right? Hey, thanks for sharing that with me. So when you call someone at all and they give you an objection, the first thing you're going to do is smile, breathe, and thank them for sharing that with you. That is your response every single time. Then next, you're going to use what's called the permission bridge, because to say something right away in response to them that disagrees with them causes conflict. You don't feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable. That's why you don't like making these calls. That's why we don't like receiving these calls, because salespeople give conflict when we object to them, right? We are not going to object to them. When they object to us, we're going to accept their rejection, right? Nah, the house just wasn't really for me. And, I don't know what we're going to do now, but thanks for calling, but I'm not interested. Thanks so much for sharing that with me. It's just so refreshing to get an honest response out of someone. Permission bridge. Would it be all right if I just shared one suggestion with you? Would it be all right if I made a suggestion? I ask for permission to continue. Would it be all right if I made a suggestion? Nah, I'm good. Click. Good. It's over, right? But most people, like 90% of people or more, are going to say, sure. So always ask for permission. Right now, you're safe. And we're going to offer a response, not a reaction, right? A response sounds something like this. That's actually something I hear a lot of times because it's reasonable. It's reasonable. One of the things I've found working with a lot of people is that they're following typical search protocols. They're using things like Zillow, they're driving around, they're seeing a bunch of places, they're talking to a bunch of agents, and it's just kind of overwhelming and frustrating. Is that what you've experienced? It's not unusual. There are very few agents that actually sit down and do a full-on consultation and really educate people before they even start the process. And I have found that doing that with my clients gets rid of a lot of the emotional roller coaster you've been riding on during this search. So my suggestion would be, whether you're ready to buy or sell now or not, that you have that consultation and just get in a better place. I'd be happy to do that with you for free if you'd like. That's an example of a response that meets them where they're at and not a reaction. So even if they don't move forward with you and they still say no, you're building trust. You still came across as a reasonable human being. Therefore, they are more likely to work with you in the future, to answer your calls in the future, and to refer you to others. So just by way of review, let me go through that one more time, but much quicker, okay? So we do the little self-affirming speech before we pick up the phone. We say, I don't need to be afraid of any of these three fears. They're cast out. What I do need to do is remind myself that I actually help people and I'm calling to help people. Then when I call them, I'm going to be very real with them and very empathetic right from the beginning. Hey, Thom, I know I'm interrupting you, pulling you away probably from something important. Just want to talk to you for a couple of minutes. We had met at an open house 3 or 4 weeks ago. Am I catching you at an okay time? All right, perfect. Wasn't sure if I was. Hey, the reason for my call is I wanted to see how you guys were doing on your search. The markets had really limited inventory, and I wanted to know, how's your search been going? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I mean, it's not unusual to hear that you're already working with another agent. And if that agent's giving you great service, I'm not going to get in the way of that. But if I can ever be a resource for you at all, I'm here. Thanks so much. That might be 10 of your calls out of 30. But that example of empathy, you can make those calls all day long, because you're being real. And those aren't calls that people reject typically. All right. What I'd like you to do, we're getting ready to bring this thing in for a landing. If you have any questions, drop them into the Q&A. If you have any questions, drop them into the Q&A. The reason why I repeated that is you're going to get a copy of this recording. You can go back through and fast forward about an hour and 15 minutes into the call and hear what I said. And then you can use that as a model template for writing your own script. One of the things we do, shameless plug in my private client group on our Thursday calls, is I write scripts like that for my clients. I would be happy to write a base script for all of you, but I actually want you to write your own using mine as a formula. I want you to get the formula. I don't want you to use my words. The formula was simple. You tell them right away the reality. You know you're taking them away or interrupting them from something. You ask for permission. Is it an okay time? You use a lot of empathy. And then you ask them a question and you move to an offer. I gave it to you. It'll be in the slides with the permission bridge and all of that stuff. Use that framework to go write your own script. And then if you want to email that script to me, I am happy to approve it or disapprove it based on my own experience coaching people with scripts. Okay. Last but not least, we got to talk quickly about motivation. Highly motivated people will do things that suck to get stuff long-term, right? Stuff that sucks right now to get stuff long-term, right? They're really disciplined people. So we need to become more motivated. And the way we do that is by focusing on our core values. After you get through 5 or 6 calls and you live, I want you to go back and remind yourself again that you're doing this to help people. If all of this sounds great and in 2 weeks pass from the time you watch this webinar and you're still not able to make a call, then I want you to get some accountability. I want you to find another realtor, and you can go into the chat right now and say, I need some help. And I want you to get a call buddy, because I can tell you right now, I go into companies all the time and I do some sales coaching. And typically all I do is I go in, I get all the salespeople to go into the conference room, sit around the table. I drop a phone in the middle and I say, let's make some dials. We review call scripts, have a little conversation, little rah-rah motivation, and they start dialing. Typically we'll walk out of that room with 10 to 15 appointments set an hour later. The CEO, VP of sales or whatever will come up to me and go, that was amazing. What did you do? I didn't do anything. What do you mean? They just made calls. You telling me my people have never been making calls? I'm telling you, your people don't make calls. I could hear it. They're not practiced at it. Matter of fact, if they were practiced, we would have set twice the amount of appointments. So all I did was make them set calls. That's how great accountability is. I need it too, right? I use a phone dialer. It forces me to dial. Some of you may like that. Some of you may not. They're expensive. I suggest you get a buddy and you meet once a week for coffee. You get caffeinated. And then you go into a conference room in a hotel somewhere, where you go back to one of your offices and you sit 6 feet apart and you call. They make 5 calls, you make 5 calls. They make 5 calls, you cheer each other on, and you don't leave that room until you've each made 30 dials. That's what most of you need. And once you've made those calls, you're going to feel fine. And you guys can go out and have some drinks together once the bars open up. All right. By the way, don't drink in order to make. You can have 2 drinks before making dials. Never more. Never more. You can hear it when you slur. All right. Make it a habit to emphasize the good and learn from mistakes. Guys, if you have a bad call session, and they rarely happen, if you have a bad call, you have one response and one response only. Write down what went wrong. I want you to write down the thing you said that triggered the response you didn't like. Because what a lot of salespeople do is they call people over and over and over again, and they get the same response over and over and over again. You've made 15 calls and you've gotten 15 to the same objection. Why don't we stop and analyze that? Stop and say, every single time this person's telling me they're not interested. And every time right before they said not interested, I ask them if they want this thing. I need to stop doing that. I need to find a different approach. That's called the scientific method. We observe, we tweak, and we try again. Marketers do that. I've got 5 versions of that ad running I showed you earlier on the break. 5 different versions to find out what works. I think one of them is going to work, but a lot of times I'm wrong. I'm surprised what works. Saying the same thing and expecting different results. 5 times you get the same thing, not one time, but if multiple times, like 5 times you get the same trigger, go back and change what you say. That is good. So failing is good in this process. And last but not least, the secret in it is the empathy, not in the magic words. You need to use that language and sound human. I appreciate, I can understand. When someone objects, when someone gives you that objection you were afraid of, I want you to come back with empathy, not a response, not a reaction. I appreciate you sharing that with me. I understand why you would feel that way. I hear that a lot. Then permission bridge. Would it be all right if I made a suggestion with that type of sound? Men that are watching this, hey, that's all your wives have wanted you to do this whole time anyway, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to go do it after this call. I'm just saying when I do, it works, right? Empathize with the people. It makes them so much more reasonable, so much more honest. It connects us. Even if they don't end up working with us, it works. So all that fear and all that sensitivity and all that servant's heart you have, see, it's actually the thing that's going to get you more clients, because you're going to call up, and when you get an objection, you're just going to empathize the daylights out of them, ask for permission to make a suggestion, and then you're going to tell them the response. And guess what? Now you're having an adult to adult, realistic human conversation. Those don't go bad. Those don't go bad. All right. Let me wrap this thing up, and then we can get to some coaching for those who want to stay. I want you to think of this now as like being a pilot. All right. How does a pilot launch the aircraft? First of all, pilots can't fly by flapping their arms. They're just not that powerful. You're not going to get out there and start flapping your arms and become a superhero caller. You're going to have to fly this jumbo jet of making calls like a pilot does. You're going to sit down and go through your checklist. You're going to start off by going through the fears, making sure you don't have any fears present, dealing with them. You're going to acknowledge the fact that you have fear, or that you have emotions present, and you're going to move forward. Excuse me 1 second. Kids are back inside. Must be time to wrap up. So what we're going to, I love working from home, and the fact that everyone else is doing it, I don't have to freak out about those things anymore. It's great. And you get to see me handle my emotional intelligence if you're still awake. I've probably nursed most of you to sleep with all of that empathetic language before. It's just like, it just puts you right out. So you're going to have your little checklist, right? You're going to look down and go, am I afraid I'm not going to get something I want? No, I'm going to be fine. Am I afraid I'm going to lose something I have? I'm not going to lose anything. I'm just going to lose some time. Am I afraid people are going to think less of me? A little bit, but that's okay. It's worth it. I'm going to hang in there for them. Why? Because I care about them, because I'm able to help them, because I am trained and have helped people in the past. My clients appreciate me, and these people will be better off with me if they're the right fit for me than if they didn't use me. I'm calling these people because I want to help them. I'm going to feel a little uncomfortable at takeoff. I know it can be a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to hang in there through some of that discomfort, and I'm going to follow the pattern I've written down here, because on the other side of that, we're going to be 30,000 feet in the air, and we're going to be smooth sailing, and we're going to get to a destination that's better for us both. So here we go. I'm going to trust this process. Next, I'm going to actually stay calm. What does that mean? Does that mean I don't feel anxiety? No, it means I'm not going to act irrationally. I'm going to stay calm. My voice is going to be calm. No sudden moves. Let me give you the number one most sudden move real estate agents make when they get someone on the phone. Overexcitement. Someone gets on the phone. Oh, hey, Sally, so glad you called. Great, super, wonderful. That's wonderful. Oh, that's great. Oh, you want an appointment? Awesome. It's desperate. What that is that's just your emotions finally coming out. It's all those hormones finally coming out. When I say stay calm, I don't mean don't be afraid or don't be anxious. I mean, don't be crazy. You know, but okay, great. Yeah, Tuesday at 1 o'clock works good. Good. That's great. Not great. Super. Good. That's good. Be reasonable, right? You're a pilot, right? You don't want a crazy pilot. No sudden moves. No sudden moves. Turbulence is normal. They say something didn't follow the script. It's normal. It's normal. What are we going to do? Guide right back to the same pattern. How do we do that? Ask a question. It's interesting. I've never heard anyone say that before. What makes you say that? And they tell you, and you come right back to the script. Can I make a suggestion? Empathize. Can I make a suggestion? Right back to the script. That's all you do. When someone says something out of the normal, you ask them a question. You are not the one who has to give a response for everything. Someone gives an objection you don't have an answer to, you don't need to give an answer. You're going to sound like an idiot. And that's what you're scared of. So you don't give an answer if you don't have an answer. What do? You ask a question. Huh, interesting. You're not interested, huh? Curious. What makes you say that? Okay, I've heard that before. Appreciate you sharing that. Can I make a suggestion? Yeah, I suggest we do this. That's what you do. All you need to do is focus on takeoff and landing. That's all you need to do. What's the takeoff? The first part of your script. Using it with empathy. Asking those initial questions. What's the landing? Make the appointment. What do I mean by that? I mean, if these people get talking and the conversation's good, we have a tendency to want to stay on the phone with them forever because we don't want to get to making the next call. We need to land the plane. Get the appointment. Oh, I've got some questions about real estate. Oh, super. I was hoping you did. Wrong answer. Oh, you've got some questions about real estate? Yeah, I thought you did. That's why I was calling. Why don't we schedule an appointment? Because what's going to happen between now and that appointment is important. And if they're not willing to give you the appointment, they were just getting free information out of you. And that's not what we're here to do. Your job is to fly, not to sell tickets. What do I mean by that? What I mean is we've got a process. We're getting people into the plane, right? You're interested, you got questions, I got answers. Here's the process. Scheduling a consultation. We're gonna sit down. I'm coming over to your house, we're having a Zoom, we're gonna have a process here. I'm not gonna sit here, go back, I'll answer a few questions. I'm not saying I don't answer a few questions, but at the end of that question, I go, can I make a suggestion now that I answered that? Why don't we go ahead and let's get the consultation going. That's what we're gonna do. It's always gonna be our comeback. Right? That's always, don't wait for them to say it. You say it. That's what we're here to do. All right. That, if you go through it again, I promise you, you will be able to make these calls. I've seen it over and over and over again. I don't know anyone who can't after going through that process. No one that I've ever coached has ever been unable to. That said, I don't know anyone who, after going through that process, eliminates emotion, because that's not what we're here to do. I also don't know anyone who sounds like a master on their first call. But I know people who make 30 dials to 100 dials a week who sound fantastic. Why? Because they've been doing it a long time. But even when they didn't sound fantastic, they still set appointments. As a matter of fact, sometimes they set more appointments early on because they're more vulnerable and they're more likely to follow the script. All right. So you need to go back and walk through that again, that process, dealing with the 3 fears, validating the emotion, writing and drilling the script, getting a buddy if you have to, remembering to validate how you help people. This is a call to offer service and help, and then make those few dials. And as the objections happen, we ask questions, we empathize, we ask for permission to move on. We don't argue with anyone, and you're going to land the plane just fine. You're going to have to go back and meditate on this a little bit, walk through that process, practice in front of the mirror a little bit before you get in the plane. I know that. But if you do, I don't care how introverted you are, you can be a very successful real estate agent. If you want to make that easier and have warmer leads, then you need to learn how to do digital prospecting. And I would definitely encourage you to check out my private client group for more on that. It's strongholdtraining.com/PCG, or just go to strongholdtraining.com, click on entrepreneurs, and you can check out my private client group. I will be sending you a small coupon for that at the end of this today. Guys, that's as long as I can talk straight. I'm dying here. I mean, an hour and a half of just me talking. I mean, if you're still awake, you're amazing. I mean, we should just hang out. I mean, my wife can't hang out with me for an hour and a half of me talking like this. You're amazing people. So Q&A time. You got some questions. I got some answers. And if I don't have an answer, I'll just lie and make it up. All right. Let me look at the chat. I don't have any questions in the Q&A. See what's in the chat. All right, going through the chat here. Where do we find you on Facebook Live? My business page. Was that his business page? Yes. Stronghold Training. If you go to Stronghold Training, that's my business page. There's stuff there. My YouTube, stuff there. That would be youtube.com, Stronghold Training. What else? Any questions? Any questions about anything at all? You guys want any real estate coaching? You want to talk open houses? You want to talk ads? You want to talk call scripts? You got me for 30 minutes if you want me. Otherwise, we're going to end this thing early. I'll give you a couple of minutes to get your questions in. Before my kids kick down the door. You see, when I get on these things, I tell them to stop streaming Netflix or Disney Plus, and then it's just over. They have to go outside and play. It's like 110 degrees out there. Not good. There's three of them. Two, almost three. He'll be three in like a week. And 5, and the oldest is 9. And they're in charge. And they don't have any emotional intelligence at all. It's safe in here. It's safe in here with you people. With you people. I like you people. All right, I'm not seeing any questions coming in. So I'm going to assume you were helped. If you weren't, if you feel the same now as you did at the beginning of this call, but you took the time to sit here and listen to me, this is the offer I'd like to make to you. You can go to my website, strongholdtraining.com, or to make it easier, go to strongholdtraining.com/schedule. And you can schedule a 15-minute call with me. There's no charge for that. And I will sit with you for 15 minutes and help you through this. Okay? If you think that the things I've said is not going to do it, or you just need a little push over the edge, strongholdtraining.com/schedule, schedule 15 minutes with me. And I am happy to help you. Do not take information like this and just move on to the next thing. Do not think that just information going in your ears over enough time is going to change you. You are going to have to take some actions. Let me put on my coach hat here for a minute and give you some tough love. You have got to take some action. You got to stop training all day long. You got to sit down, schedule 30 minutes on your calendar to go back over these notes, write the stupid script, practice the things I said, and give it a try. If you don't do that, it's not going to get any better. No one is going to carry you across the finish line. But here's the good news. If you just get up and do that for 30 minutes, you are going to get stronger. Working out for 30 minutes, even if you're only lifting 5 pounds as opposed to not working out, will make you stronger and you will feel better. You need to spend 30 minutes of going back over this material and implementing it. If not, I am telling you, you would have been better off not to have been here. All right. Some of you are like, I was already feeling that way anyway. Well, good. I'm glad I could validate it for you. If you need that extra 15 minutes of personal training time to get you there, I'm happy to give it to you. Just go schedule it with me. If you'd like lots of time, all the time, making this a lot easier and building predictable success processes and lots of ads to get you leads. I have a client who, she got like 19 leads last week off an ad we're running. If that is helpful, then check out strongholdtraining.com/PCG for a private client group. And that's cheaper than any coaching you're going to find out there known to man. So I think so. If there's a coach cheaper than that, then send me their information. I'll get their coaching. So perfect. Guys, you've been awesome. Appreciate all the interaction for this. Don't have any questions. So we're getting out of here. Sayonara. I will see you on the next webinar, or if you schedule a call with me or in the private client group. See you guys.